Okay, so my name is Emily Muniz. I am the transfer counselor here at CVCC. And today, for this help workshop, I wanted to talk about the application process. This was initially scheduled a few weeks ago to hopefully schedule on time to get their applications in, but due to the snow, we had to reschedule to today. So I was getting a lot of questions that I wanted to put out the answers for everyone because application deadlines are right around the corner, and I want to make sure everyone knows what is expected of you. So we're just going to talk about the dates and deadlines, what materials might be required to apply. There's a fee waiver I'm going to talk about, the common application, just some transfer requirements, and then FAFSA. So dates and deadlines. So this is something that you need to research, which hopefully all of you already have, but they're different for every school, and so you need to find out what those dates are and plan ahead. So you mentioned UVA, their deadline is next Wednesday, I believe, March 1st. So that's something that you should have known well in advance of today. So you need to determine also if you're going to be applying as a freshman or a transfer student, because that will also potentially change your deadline for when you need to apply. So if you're a transfer student, most schools say you need to have so many transfer credits in order to be considered transfer. A lot of schools it's 24, some I've seen 12, some I've seen even 30 credits. So that's something that each school will need to indicate to you. Again, if you're a transfer student, the deadline is usually later in the year. If you're a freshman, it's usually in the fall. And that will also determine what you need to submit as far as application materials. So if you're considered a freshman, you would need your high school transcript and either SAT or ACT scores. Next, determining what materials need to be submitted with your application, and we'll talk about that a little bit on a later slide. And again, submit early, start planning early. This is a process. This is not something that if you're thinking of going to UVA that you should be starting today. This is something that should have been ongoing just because it is a process to get all of your materials in. So the application and common application. Some schools require both a standard application and the common app. I think William and Mary requires both. Most schools, though, require one or the other. The common application has a lot of pieces to it, so that, again, is why you want to start early. There's a lot of things that you need to gather for the common application, as it requires additional documents. So the college transfer report, midterm report. Now, for the common app, and I have another slide where I'll get into a little bit more about this, not every school requires each of these additional documents. So that's another thing that you need to find out. Does the school that I'm applying to require these supplemental materials that are listed in the common application? High school transcript, most colleges require these even if you're not a freshman applicant, just because they may need to verify that you have a foreign language in high school or if you took so many sciences in high school. But that's something you'll want to find out. Does the school require the high school transcript? If you have SAT or ACT scores, you need to find out if those are going to be required, and make sure you get those sent in by the deadline. Again, some schools require them regardless if you're freshman or transfer applicant. If you have AP scores, you'll want to submit those. You'll need to check and see if at your four-year school what is the minimum score required, because that varies from school to school. CVCC, we will accept a minimum of a 3. Minimum of a 3. But a lot of schools it needs to be a 4 or a 5 on those AP exams. So that's something that you'll want to look into. And then, of course, a college or university transcript. So since you all are CVCC students, you need to submit your CVCC transcript and then any other transcripts that you may have from other colleges or universities. And so this is the biggest question I've been getting. You need to send an official transcript by the deadline, even if you're still in your current semester. I've had students that will wait until the semester grades are posted, but that was due back when you applied. So that hurts their application, and hopefully they're still able to get in, but definitely still submit your transcript as of right now, because it will have your fall grades, and I believe it'll have the classes that you're currently enrolled in. So you'll request one now to submit with your application. Then once your grades are posted, you'll request another one and have that sent. If you're graduating, you want to wait until your degree is posted on there and have that sent. So you may be sending several transcripts, and that's okay. Fortunately, right now, ours are free, so request as many as you need to. And then an application fee may be required unless you qualify for the waiver, which I'll talk about next. And then recommendation letters, if applicable. So if you're doing the Common App, those are required, at least one. So you want to make sure you include that. So the application fee waiver. So if you are eligible for a Pell Grant, you should also be eligible for this application fee waiver. And I've brought copies of that if you need that. You do have to determine if the school that you're applying to will use the waiver. Not every school will take that. So you can visit College Board, and I can click on that here in just a moment to see if your school will accept that. Maybe not. Okay, and so then you would just type in, you know, if you're wanting to just look at a certain state, or if you know the school, just click on this first one here. And this may just link to their website. I think that's what it's going to do. But yeah, this lists the schools that will accept that. And a lot of times the school website will also say that. And if you don't see it, you can always call and ask the admissions office. Okay, the Common Application. So how many of you are needing to submit the Common App for your school? You already did, okay. So UVA is a big one that uses the Common Application. Liv and Mary, I believe, uses it. And so, as you all that have completed this, you know it's kind of bare. So there's a lot of pieces. There's a lot of people that are involved in submitting different, you know, pieces of the Common App for you. Again, not required by every college or university. So you want to find out if the school you're applying to requires that. And again, not all documents that are listed are required unless it's requested by your four-year school. So the college transfer report, midterm grades, those aren't always required. UVA, just as an example again, they recommend these, but they are not always required. Recommender information. So this is, you know, a letter of recommendation from, you know, someone here at CVCC, whether it's a staff member or one of your faculty members. I believe at least one is required. But you want to do this part early because you want to give the person that's recommending you plenty of time to write that recommendation. If you wait until the last minute, that's not their problem. You know, you need to make sure you give them ample time to write that, and make sure it's someone that you know and that knows you. You know, we in the counseling office may meet with a student one time, and then they want us to recommend them a year or two down the line. Well, we don't have that relationship, so you want to develop that. And so what I would do, you know, request the recommendation, give them at least 2 weeks, and then follow up with them to make sure that it was submitted before the deadline. Okay, transfer requirements. So each college and university is unique, and it has different requirements, or it may have different requirements. Here are some of the ones that I see that are pretty standard. Having a C or better in each course in order to transfer. Now that is usually the case. It's not always the case, especially if you have an associate degree. Some schools will accept Ds as they are passing at CVCC, but you'll need to find that out in advance. But if you were to retake it here, you know, the new grade would replace the old grade, and that would help your GPA. So Ds, I would probably, you know, recommend retaking. Let's see. And then if you're planning on transferring under the guaranteed admission agreement, some courses may require a B or better in order to be eligible. You know, those guaranteed admission agreements have pretty strict requirements because they're guaranteeing admission to their school, so they need to make sure that you're meeting that. But you would need to look at each specific school's agreement. And there is a spot off of our website that I can show you where those are linked. You just need to go through and read it with a fine-tooth comb. Because it's very, very detailed. So it lists them by public colleges and universities and then private. But if you click on, so if we wanted to look at Christopher Newport, we would just click where it says read it, and it'll bring up the actual document. So again, you need to read through every single thing. Every single item on this agreement has to be met in order to qualify. That doesn't mean that you can't transfer without this, though. So if you're not meeting something, don't get discouraged. You can still apply and still be accepted. And then, of course, you know, there's a minimum GPA requirement for every school. Some schools, you know, Lynchburg College is a 2.0. Well, you can't even graduate here without a 2.0, so that should be pretty easy to do. Now, if you have a higher GPA, you're then going to be eligible for different scholarships, we'll talk about in a minute. But some schools, they want a 3.4, 3.5, 3.6 even. So that's something that you need to be working towards. And then Some college or university programs have additional admission requirements. So if you are applying to, just say, a nursing program at the four-year school, you need to have certain prerequisites. There may be other courses that you need to have before you can apply, or additional admission requirements or materials that are required to apply to that program, even though it may not be required to apply just to the university. So financial aid, that's something that you also need to be thinking about. How are you going to pay to go to the school? So financial aid is an umbrella term for any type of aid. So grants, scholarships, loans, all of that falls under financial aid. In order to get any of those, you need to complete the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. And so once you file taxes for this year, if you're under 24, that's going to be based on your parents. Over 24, you'll be independent, so that'll be based on your taxes. Once you filed for the 2015 tax year, you can then submit your FAFSA for the next school year, so the 2016-2017 school year. And I would do that early. And so if you're thinking of multiple schools, applying to multiple schools, go ahead and list all of them. And once you accept, your financial aid application will already be there. Let's see. And so then you would also need to have the FAFSA in place if you want to apply for scholarships. So, and scholarships is something I would highly recommend. That's money that they're giving you to go to school. You do not pay that back. But what scholarships are offered varies from school to school. So if you go to the school's financial aid webpage, usually they will have a list of what they offer. Scholarships are merit-based, so based on your performance academically, or need-based. And these usually require additional documentation. So maybe an essay, an application for that, they may require transcripts. So you want to see what is required for each scholarship that you're applying for as well. And then of course loans, just to talk about those, you are paying those back. So you want to make sure you research that carefully as to how much you're taking out and borrowing and all of that. So some helpful hints: start early, don't wait until the last minute. I know we couldn't get this workshop in until kind of late in the game, but hopefully you all have already been doing a lot of these things. I highly encourage students to work with not just myself or one of the CBCC counselors, but also the college and university to which you're applying. You need to have a relationship with them as well. So that way you're getting information from them, you're getting information from us, and so you'll be knowledgeable about what's expected of you on both sides. I mentioned this a little bit already. You need to develop relationships with faculty and staff here at CBCC because you want to have someone that can write a recommendation for you when that time comes. And you want them to be able to speak to your abilities and your character. So develop those relationships so that when that time comes, you've got a go-to person that you can ask. Because again, coming to someone that you haven't either met at all or only met once or twice, they aren't able to say how great you are because they don't know. So take the time to develop those relationships because they may even help you even after you've left CBCC. I still keep in touch with some of my faculty when I was in school, and they've helped me. If I wanted to go to grad school, I can help with that, and even getting jobs. So those are relationships you want to have. Take time writing your college essays. So I've had a lot of students coming in, they want me to help with their applications, and I'm happy to do that. But take your time on your essay. Don't feel like that's something you have to write right then. That's something that you need to plan out what you're going to say. You need to make sure that you've had someone read over it for you. Double check for any spelling mistakes, any grammatical errors, anything like that. Make sure it reads well, because that is what this four-year school is looking at. That's all they get is basically how you're writing your essay, and everything is on paper. They don't know you yet, so you need to make sure that you take your time with that. And then triple check, quadruple check, however many times that you have submitted all the materials that are required and that they have been received by the college or university prior to the deadline. So that way if you are missing something, you still have time to submit that. And don't feel like you're being a pest with the four-year school or with me. When students ask me questions, that means a lot to me because I know that means that you care and you're doing what you can. And the four-year school I'm sure feels the same way. They would rather you ask in advance so that way you have time to fix anything that needs fixing instead of waiting until after the deadline when it might be too late. So again, just double check that as many times as necessary. And I believe with the common application, it tells you when things are submitted for you, so that part is helpful. Any questions? And if not, That's great, I covered it all?
I have a couple.
Okay, go
few
for it.
questions.
Yeah.
I did the common application,
Mhm.
and for UVA, it didn't say that I would need to submit recommendations.
So when you log in, and you may want to tell me with this part, there is an academic evaluator, I think is how it's listed, option. And that is where you submit someone to recommend you. So the reason I'm referring to Ume is because I did one for her. And so, she put my name, my email, and it sent me a request. And then I log into Common App, and I, put whatever I can about her, and then I upload a recommendation letter for her. So if you want, have you already submitted it?
I have.
Okay. You might want to reach out to UVA and see if someone can mail it for you, and I think that's fine. I think I had a student do that this semester also. So still get that recommendation and just maybe have them mail it directly to UVA's admissions office. Yeah, because I think they want at least one. So you definitely want to have that with your application.
The thing is, it actually said not required, which is why I didn't do it, but I have some really good recommendations.
Yeah,
It
I
might
would
help
send
me
those
get
in, yeah, send a hard copy for sure. Yeah, and that's the thing with the Common App, because they're making it so that all of these schools can use it, but then each school has their own kind of requirements within that. And so it's not my favorite thing. It is a nice tool, if you are applying to multiple schools that use it, but you do have to double check and see, do they need this, do they need that? UVA actually has a transfer blog where they put some of that out there. But like I said, you should be able to mail the hard copies in.
So if, for the fee waiver,
Mhm.
are you eligible if you qualify for financial aid?
Yeah, so
Is that for
financial,
any school or just? some?
I believe so. Well, no, I take that back. I do not believe so. It's whatever school will accept it, and not all schools do accept it. Let's see. But I will give you guys a copy of that if you want. But I'm trying to think, does the Common App, did it ask you to go ahead and pay already?
No, it asks for the fee waiver if you have. one.
Okay, all right, good. Yeah, let me give you guys a copy. So it's front and back.
And I clicked that, so I'm really, I
Okay,
need
great,
that.
yeah, there you go. And so then you just take this to the financial aid office here, and if you're eligible, they'll sign off on it. And if you guys want more copies, if you're applying to local schools, I've got extras up here. Anything else? And I can hang around for a few minutes if you guys want to talk just one-on-one, that's fine too. All right, I think that's it. Thank you all for coming.